Welcome to the Allen Americans podcast and Throwback Thursday. And joining me is the former MVP of the Central Hockey League Finals in the 2013 Allen Americans Championship win over the Wichita Thunder. And I always wonder if I'm pronouncing this name right. Is it Rosso?
Rose, pretty close.
Okay, close enough. He is the pride of Rosso, Minnesota, and Brian McMillin joining us here on Throwback Thursday. Millie, how are you?
I'm doing well, Tommy. Holding close to home like everyone else, and about ready to I guess let loose when this is all behind us. But hanging in there.
Yeah, and you know what? I got a feeling we're getting close. I know they keep saying it's going to get better before it gets worse, but we've had enough of worse. We need a little better, and you know, it's been great. If anything, during this pandemic, it's been awesome to see people like you and Jamie Shafsma and Daryl Bootland and Chad Costello and a lot of people that we've chatted with on our Throwback Thursday, which has been our most popular segment. And I couldn't do one without talking to you because obviously you had a big part and a big role in our first ever championship. When you reflect back and you think about that, Billy, is it still kind of blow your mind that, you know, there was Chad Costello, there was a lot of good players on that team, and it was Brian McMillin that stood tall and was the MVP of that series?
Yeah, it was an entertaining playoff run for all of us, but I guess for me in particular, it was quite the scene. I guess I don't know. It's hard to ever explain to kind of have the run that I did personally, and and obviously the cherry on top, but winning that championship was big for me. That was my first one, and the organization's first one, and a lot of other guys' first championship. So that was pretty special, and something I'll never forget, that's for sure.
Well, you know, I've talked to a couple other guys about that first championship, but in most recently Daryl Bootland. But tell me, if you would, what you remember about that third period, because here we are, we're down 2-0, and you know, I know everybody's nervous, broadcasters, fans, you know, you name it, anybody that was involved, from front office staff to ownership, we were all nervous in that third period. But you guys always seemed calm and cool, and it seemed like we knew if you kind of followed the pattern of the team that year, that team was never out of a game. We always felt like there was going to be somebody would score a big goal coming back. Take us through that third period and starting with the Jarrett Lucan goal that got us going.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little nervous going into that third period, but you know what? When Lukey got us going, he battled a lot along the way for us, and that was a huge goal. And as that momentum started building, you know, the crowd, the energy in that building was like nothing I've ever felt before. And you know, as it kept coming, it just, I don't know. Once we scored the second goal, you know, we didn't feel like we could lose. But that being said, you know, the overtime, you know, the break came at the best time for Wichita. And so, you know, you go into the locker room and kind of resettle. But, you know, I listened to Booter and stuff too. In the locker room, everyone was there. Everyone was calm, collected. You know, they were ready to get the job done. But once we went back out there, you know, honestly, I don't remember much because it was every shift was kind of just surviving, make sure that didn't get scored on, and eventually, you know, we had enough skill in that lineup to get the job done. And like Booter said, you know, Robinson came up big, and exactly what he came there for. We got the job done, and that was pretty special.
Bootman told me the other day, and this is something I never knew, and I guess he and Trevor Hendricks had talked about it, but Bootland said, hey, that was my goal. And Hendo said, look, you know what? I've got my championship ring. You can take the goal. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter now. You know,
Tommy,
yeah.
After all these years, you still believe that Daryl Bootland tipped that goal? Or if you still believe anything that comes out of Booter's mouth, I feel sorry for you. I'm going to give that credit to Hendricks all day. So,
well,
he's maybe stole a few from the front of the net. So we'll keep credit where it was due.
Well, it was definitely a night to remember. And you mentioned, of course, the big moment about that night was Todd Robinson. And here's a guy who joins us at the end of the year, and I know you played with him a little bit, out there during the final series. And none of our fans really know much about Todd Robinson, but we remember him from Odessa when he played with them, and of course was in Evansville. We started the year before Steve Martinson traded for him. Tell us a little bit about Todd Robinson and what type of hockey player he is.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think to a lot of us, he was a bit of a mystery. Came in late, and a few people knew him, and a few people have played against him, but a lot of us really had no idea. And we'd obviously seen his numbers and seen what he could do, but yeah, it was a great move there for us. He came in with a lot of experience and a lot of skill and just a lot of poise, and those are the types of players that make a difference. Obviously if he's not coming in late in the year like that and in that lineup, we probably aren't winning that whole thing. So I think to get a guy like that late and bring that much that much skill and that much leadership that late was a huge thing for us, and really the cherry on top to seal the deal.
A lot of people forget who the goaltender was in that series that won a championship with us. They wouldn't forget him now.
Yeah, no, it's been fun to watch Deller's rise to fame, I guess. And I think he always remembers kind of where he got his start, so that's good too. And fun to be a part of it and play just a little role in his first championship, and hopefully one day that is capped off with a Stanley Cup for him.
Brian McMillin joining us here on the Allen Americans podcast on Throwback Thursday. Millie, what I remember most about you, and along with being a part of that championship, is I remember the first time you played for Allen, and I remember you getting cut, and I remember meeting you as you were walking out the door, and you were not happy, you were upset, and you said, "Tommy, I'll be back." And boy, did you come back, and boy, did you come back in a big way. Talk about that, the motivation. We've all been there in different type of jobs and always feel like, hey, we should be there, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't work out. How much was getting cut that time motivate you to come back and do what you did?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously not something that's easy. And that year, that team in 2010, 2011 there was pretty stacked. And I came in, partway through the year and felt like I contributed throughout the year and played a ton of games, played pretty much every game from December to the end of the regular season. But right at the regular season, like you see every year, you had guys that were in the American League start coming back down. And that's one thing with, especially back with the old Central League rosters, there wasn't a lot of extra spots. And so,
Right.
Molly had to make the decision, and I was the guy, kind of the odd man out, and obviously would have loved to have been there for the playoffs, but he kind of at that time said, "Look, here's the situation, and we're gonna want you back next year, and hopefully, you don't go your separate way." And at the time, we had started to fall in love with the area and the organization, and the idea of coming back was something that we wanted to do. And if nothing else, it was a chance to build and hopefully prove some people wrong along the way.
You're one of the guys, along with the Ludwigs, that played for both Dwight Mullins and Steve Martinson. What is the difference in their style of coaching?
Yeah, I mean, it was different. I would say, Marty's Marty is Marty. There's, I guess, he's kind of one of a kind. He has his own style. He's, can be pretty hard, but obviously at the end of each of those championship years, he was able to kind of let himself loose a little bit, I guess, and smile and enjoy some time with the guys. But, it was all business all year. And Mully, he had some great teams down there, and he did well, and, was able to bring a lot of success to the organization. And, I think it's just one of those things. Sometimes some of those changes just kind of spark some different stuff. And it was obviously a good long-term thing, getting Steve Martinson in the door.
Billy, what was the best thing about playing for the Allen Americans? Because, every guy I asked the same question, They've all had different answers. What for Brian McMillin? What was it about Allen that made your hockey life so much fun?
Honestly, Tommy, I think the whole thing was just couldn't be beat. It was second to none. I mean, from the organization, when we got there, it was obviously we went through some different ownership changes and there's some different stuff along the way, but we always, the facility is amazing, the fans are amazing. You get down there, the weather's amazing. Obviously that's something that you always fight with guys wanting to
Yeah.
enjoy themselves outside maybe too much, but at the same time, for me, being a golfer, being a fisherman, doing all that stuff and being able to do that all year while I'm playing hockey, they're just my wife and I have talked about it since then. I don't think there is a better spot in minor league hockey than Allen, Texas. So we just, yeah, I don't know that there's one thing that made that the spot, but just the whole thing, it couldn't have been a better spot for us personally.
Also, you were there when Belfour and Madonna and Matvechuk and that crew and Ludwig were all part of the team. What was that like to have those NHL guys around?
It was something, it was pretty cool. Obviously, just the age I was at, they were players that when I was younger, they were players I watched a lot. And they obviously had their success while I was kind of, just a youngster developing my game and my love for the game. And I just remember the first time when all of a sudden we heard the announcements and, I think I was actually golfing with the Ludwigs and, when they started to get some of the news of what was going on and, just kind of, there was a buzz from the start, it brought a lot of kind of fanfare, electricity, and, the players, you could feel it from the very beginning that they were trying to do something different and trying to kind of create something like they did. And it was pretty special to be able to walk in and, see those big guys. And, obviously some of them were more connected to the organization than others, but it was pretty cool to actually get to a point of knowing those guys and where if you cross paths with them, they're going to stop and talk to you and have a conversation, because they know you personally. And I think that, in their own ways, they all had a big part in developing what was developed there.
You were also here for the alumni game a couple seasons ago. How much fun was that to get all, and that was our first one that we've ever done, and to see you guys like Bruce Graham and Justin Bowers and Brian McMillin and Jared Lukin, Daryl Bootland, a lot of guys who showed up, Riley Gill. How much fun was it to get all those different players from all those different teams together on one afternoon? And boy, the crowd really loved it.
Yeah, that was something when they first brought that up and, someone reached out and just asked if we were interested. It's something we weren't going to miss. We told them, let's do it. And it, kind of pulled it off to where we got a pretty good turnout there. And it was a ton of fun and something that I definitely would look forward to doing again in the future. Obviously, things are a lot different right now, but hopefully something we can get back to doing, because that, a lot of guys, there was a few guys that I hadn't played with, but, the short history of the team and my tenure there, I guess most guys I had some contact with. So it's fun to get back in touch with those guys and see them face to face, and definitely some entertainers along the way. So any chance you get to have some chats with Lukey or Booter, it's entertaining if nothing else.
Last question for you. This might be a tough one because you played with a lot of good players and a lot of guys that I'm sure you keep in touch with. Who's the best teammate you've ever had? You can even go back to, when you were playing, college hockey. Who was your favorite teammate, best teammate? Maybe somebody you learned something about the game that you didn't know from.
That is a tough question, Tommy. One of the things that, being there for so long and having a group that we had for so long, it's something that's pretty special, I think, in professional hockey, especially minor league hockey. Players come and go, and it's one of those things you look at some of the things, I think in the blog the other day, Barry had said something about, the guys that had won 3 championships there, and to spend that much time with the Ludwigs, with Shafsma, Asachuk, Hansen, those guys, even the guys that were there for, 1 or 2, you look at Berube and Deitch and, it's just that whole group. I think everyone learned a lot from each other. You look at some of the, just the way that a lot of those guys carried themselves. They had a ton of fun, but they were professionals and they were good people. And, it's just, I don't know. I think the group we had there, kind of, I don't know, everyone just kind of leaned on each other. And as far as one teammate over another, I don't think it's something I could ever come up with, because they all had their traits that you looked for and that you learned from. And, it's definitely was a special time in our lives, because it's a group that, to this day, if you sat down with them, it'd be just like yesterday that we were there.
I don't remember who wrote this, but it may have been someone around the league, but I remember he wrote, and I thought this was pretty accurate. He said, Allen probably doesn't have the most skilled team, but they have the best team, and team being the key right there, because everybody played for everybody. There was no egos in that room. And when it was all said and done, even going up against the South Carolina team where everybody in the world had the Allen Americans dead and buried, the little Allen team found a way in Game 7 to come out in a big 6-1 win. So I think about those times, Millie, and I think about the guys that were involved over the years, and you were obviously a big part of that. Thank you for doing this today. Give my best to Wendy. And hopefully we'll see you sooner than later. But that next reunion, I know number 9 will be there.
I will be there, Tommy. Thanks for having me, and take care of yourself.
All right, there he is, the MVP from the 2013 President Cup Finals, the one and only Brian McMillin.